Welcome to Expert Voices by Keynote Women, where leadership gets reimagined and bold ideas take stage. This season, we're exploring inclusive, forward thinking approaches that are reshaping how we lead. Keynote Women is a global, volunteer led network of speakers founded in 2017 to bring more diversity to stages around the world. We champion fresh perspectives and real impact in business, in communities, and beyond. Each episode brings you powerful conversations with leaders who are rewriting the rules and redefining what great leadership can be. I'm Gitika Agarwal, leadership coach and founder of Grow with Gitika Coaching and Consulting, and part of the Keynote community, and your host for today's episode. I strongly believe in community building as a way to get more voices out there and get more women leaders to be heard. As part of that, I'm not only a member of Keynote, I manage coaching and mentoring for women in product Singapore. I also manage a community of around 150 plus women leaders on WhatsApp called Leadership Nuggets, where we share bite sized leadership tips every day. And with that, I'm going to introduce our guest today, Courtney Lohman. Welcome, Courtney. Courtney
Thank
is
you.
an
I'm excited to be here. How is everyone?
Courtney is an award-winning leader, keynote speaker, and expert in sustainability, regenerative strategy, and impact-driven leadership. With a bold and visionary approach, Courtney helps audiences awaken to their passion to drive change both personally and professionally. Through compelling storytelling and actionable insights, she inspires professionals to align passion with strategy, tackle challenges courageously, and create meaningful impact. Whether speaking to corporate teams, HR groups, or empowering women leaders, Courtney's sessions ignite transformation and leave audiences ready to lead with intention and vision. Courtney, welcome to Expert Voices. So eager to hear more about your leadership journey and the way you inspire all women leaders.
I'm thrilled to be here. I can't wait to have a conversation with you. Let's jump in. I'm eager and ready to go.
Wonderful. Let's get started. So, Courtney, what first inspired your leadership journey?
I don't know that I could go back and pinpoint one exact moment that I would say inspires it. I maybe kind of a funny story. My mom jokes that when I came out of the womb, I was absolutely determined and I was on my own mission and on my own path from the get-go. And so, if I think back, part of me wonders, was I set up from the beginning to sort of be on this path, right? Or what were the influences that happened along the way? But I think to some degree, there's something rooted in me that often will raise my hand and step to the front of the line and say, oh, I can take that on, or I can do that, or I'll give that a try. And so I don't know that over the years I've been overly calculated or had some real robust plan around how I was going to be a leader. I think some of it has happened very naturally. And then I think as I got older, maybe there was some more intentionality around it. And specifically, once I got involved with sustainability, I think I really saw an opportunity with that to educate myself and push forward and drive for change and intentionally more or less step into a place where I was leading the conversation versus waiting for somebody else to see if they could find and solve the problem. So yeah, I don't know that there was ever some big plan, but I do know that it was more rooted in maybe those topics or things that I had a passion around. And I would then say to myself, you know what, you're going to step into a space here and you're going to lead this because you're going to make it happen. So I think that's probably the best way to say it.
I love it. I absolutely love it, Courtney. As a leadership coach and as someone who's been in the industry for almost 20 years now, I've noticed that women who own their leadership, who own their success, are really powerful and inspiring and then begin to stand out as leaders, natural leaders themselves. So it's very good that you've been able to recognize that. And I love the analogy you said that my mother said as soon as you came out of the womb you were raring to go. I feel women are natural leaders, and more women need to just build in that confidence to get their leadership visible to the outside world. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with that. I feel like if the conversation around leadership was different or defined differently, that we'd probably see more women younger feel like natural leaders. Too often we kind of slot ourselves into those traditional roles or mindsets around what we're supposed to be, right? Versus allowing ourselves to just sort of freely develop into who we are really going to be and step into a place where we can naturally use our best skills, right? And I agree. I think women are natural leaders. I'm all about pull on your passion, step into leadership, like really root down in what means the most to you. And then you're going to find yourself in a natural position to really lead with what that is. So I love it. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Now that makes it two of us. Courtney, what's one value or early experience that continues to shape how you lead?
This is a pretty easy one. So I have talked about her throughout my entire career. I was 22 years old. My very first job after I graduated from college from university, I had my very first boss. She was absolutely incredible. She let me ask every question I could possibly think of. She let me challenge her. She let me, continue to ask why she was making decisions. She'd let me sit in on meetings and phone conversations she was having. She was really allowing me to absorb everything around the business that I was in and how she was making decisions and why she was making decisions and how she analyzed things and why she was analyzing them in that way and how all the pieces started to fit together. And it was honestly transformational for my entire career. I've talked about her in every job interview I've ever had. I've told this story numerous times. I've mentored younger people coming out of college. I've given this story to them. Always ask questions, find the right kind of boss or mentor that will allow you to ask questions. I think her being that open, honest, and willing to let me sit in that space and ask those questions and challenge and say why I don't understand, why not do it this way versus that way. That really shaped everything that I've done in my career. I think it's always influenced how I've approached other people and how I've come into different conversations and situations. I think I've always carried that with me. So yeah, I really credit it where I am today to her and how she let me be who I needed to be at 22, you know?
That's so beautiful, Courtney. I can literally see the admiration that you have for her, and you're literally crediting her for who you are today. I think that's amazing when you see two powerful women allowing each other to just be in their own space and, not be scared that, okay, she's just a young one out of college and, she's going to take my job. So that in itself shows so much self assurance.
Oh, completely. Yeah. She was really incredible. At the time, I was like, this is so cool.
I agree because those times were very different with managers having more top down hierarchy and very hierarchical, patriarchal also to some extent.
Yep.
So that's such a pleasant change to hear from you. Thank you again for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Courtney, the next question I have for you is, how do you lead like a woman? Because nowadays there's a lot of chatter on social media, right? How do you influence like a man? And just a couple of weeks ago, I did a coaching session on the same thing, that a lot of women are asking, how do you influence like a man? Which is kind of strange. When we are born, we see that mothers are the one that are actually leaders of their houses, and then you slowly get into school where usually you see female teachers and female school principals. It's kind of strange, that people would associate influence with man, but I'm very eager to hear your thoughts around that.
I think that's an interesting question. I was born in the 1970s. I grew up in a space where we still didn't necessarily have females in places or females in positions where you were looking up to them, whether it be sports or entertainment or things like that, right? And so I took an approach, again, from my carving my own path mindset, right? I kind of took an approach really early on that just because I didn't see a woman in a certain place or position, I never saw that as, well, I can't do that because there's not already a woman there. I never in my life read it that way. I read it in just the opposite. I read it as, almost in sort of a cheeky, well, if a man is there and a man can do it, clearly I can do it. Like, there's no reason why I can't step into whatever that is. And I think that's an interesting, especially in today's day and age, I think that's a really interesting concept around female leadership to keep in mind. And especially in terms of how maybe you influence and how maybe you enter the conversation. I think when I've encountered, and talked with like mentors and whatnot over the years, I think sometimes we as women still are waiting to be invited into those conversations because we don't feel like that's the space where we're supposed to be. And I honestly think that we should all just walk into the room with the confidence to say, I've been here the whole time and I'm going to command the conversation and be a part of it, and not wait for, that invitation or that sense of, well, maybe somebody will ask me my opinion. No, step up to the table, grab the mic, like absolutely voice what it is that you're thinking about. Your perspectives are unique, they're interesting, they should be heard. And so I think that's one concept that I would bring to the table, and really I wish more women would just embrace that. To me, it's not about influencing like a man at all. It's about influencing through your perspective, through your ideas, through your unique viewpoint and how you're going to approach the situation. Especially if you think about the corporate world and leadership, no one is going to solve the problem. Like, no two people will solve the problem the exact same way. So just because you're sitting in the room and you're not fully aligned with what someone else is saying, it doesn't mean what your idea is bad. Like, your idea could still totally be valid. The right answer is a combination of several ideas in the room. So waiting to be invited to present those kinds of ideas, like, let's just stop doing that. We don't have to talk like a man. We don't have to stand like a man. We don't have to, whatever else it is. I've just never attached to any of that. I think I've always walked into the room and just said, like, no, like, not only am I supposed to be here, but I am here and I'm going to participate, if I feel like I have something valuable to give to the conversation. And so I think we just all need to kind of walk into places with that approach and just influence based on who we are. I think that to me is the most critical.
That's so beautifully said. Influence just the way we are. Courtney, I have a question for you. That you said that you were born in the 1970s, right? And from an Asian perspective, that was still a time of rediscovering. Not many women were there in the workforce. And what I notice now is that a lot of women lack that confidence to just speak up and to have that mindset, that the way you said it, right? That I never thought of it as a man who's doing it. I was like, if someone's not doing it, then I want to do it. How do you get that confidence and conviction in your own self?
I think you've got to root down into really discovering who you are and what it is that's probably like what it is that means something to you, that's important to you. Maybe rooting some into your passions and what your purpose is, and then knowing that you're well educated on that topic. So let's just take corporate as an example, right? You've gone through school, you've gotten an education, you've maybe worked at a job or two, right? And you're starting to really kind of build your career. You have all of this expert knowledge, unique experiences, you've solved several problems, come up with new solutions, what have you. There's no reason that you can't have the confidence to stand in a room with 15, let's call them male leaders, right? 15 male leaders, and use your voice to say, you know what, gentlemen, I've actually seen this work as a solution. I think we might want to consider some pieces of that would fold in well with what it is that we're trying to do here. I think sometimes we're not like relying on our own knowledge that we know we have, our own passion around, no, I've actually solved this before. I know I can help people get to that next level. I think we kind of still keep all of that inside of us and we don't allow it to just sort of build and come out. And I think we need to tap into that more. We need to be more internally confident that you can walk into the room and just say, I've got this. I have a great solution for us. I think it's going to work really well as long as we put our heads together and tweak, A, B, and C, and just know that we're bringing value to that conversation. You know, I think a lot of times that's the biggest part, is that I don't know that women think they're bringing value. And I think we have, at this point especially, so much education behind us, so much experience behind us, that there is absolutely no reason that we don't have as much to contribute as the person standing next to us, male, female, what have you, right? So we just need to know internally that that's the case, and trust our knowledge and trust what we've learned, what our experiences have been, that they're going to contribute positively to that conversation.
I love it. And I love how you say that we tend to forget the kind of experiences that we've had and the kind of successes that we've had when we were doing those. So that's definitely a great idea, just to keep in mind that I have had success before, I've had these challenges before, and I can do it again. And it doesn't really matter whether I'm a man or a woman.
It doesn't matter at all. It's interesting that you brought this up. I don't know if women, if there's any research around, like if, when women fail, are they less likely to then voice opinions, after that or what have you? I don't know if that's the case, but to me, I don't ever see failure as a bad thing. Failure is not really failure. Failure is just well, we've tried it. It didn't work. We learned from it. Here are the opportunities for us to take these next steps to really find the right solution as we go forward. If we're not failing at something, we're never growing and we're never learning. And so maybe part of it too for women is understanding and leaning into that and saying, like, no, it's absolutely fine. I'm allowed to fail. I'm allowed to grow. I'm allowed to build upon this immense structure that I'm building that is me, right? The more that I build it, the more that I try, and the more that I succeed, then, the bigger and greater I become.
Oh, the more I succeed, the greater I become. Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you for sharing, Courtney. As we were talking about, you're from an American culture, and we are here in Asia. I'm from Asia, India, now in Singapore. How does cultural or sector specific context shape how you lead?
Okay, so I have spent my entire career in the events, hospitality, and tourism business sector. So, worldwide business, every country has hospitality and tourism, every country has events. And in the US, I don't know what the statistics are necessarily in Asia Pacific or what have you, but in the US, the industry is mostly women. When you look at all the different positions, right? It is mostly women that are working in the industry. However, the top C-suite type roles, CEOs, COs, what have you, are mostly men. And you have this real imbalance. And I think it's been interesting, especially in more recent years, at least in the US, as we've talked more in the US about gender equality and things like that. It's been something that the industry here has had a lot of conversation around. And it's like I want to say it's like a crazy statistic. It's like 75% of the industry is women, right? But then you look at the leadership and it's a crazy flip in terms of at the top of the org chart, it's mostly men. As I've always approached the type of work that I've done within this industry, I think I have always sought out those other female leaders. I've sought out for ways to try to elevate women into those conversations. Definitely sought out when, looking at for people to mentor, really sought out other women coming into the space and helping them thrive in whatever that looked like for them, right? Success is different for everyone. Not everyone is trying to be a CEO, but what does it look like for you to thrive, for you to feel like you're leading within this space? What does that mean? And I think the more that we can continue to elevate and give women that space to do it, the better this industry becomes. So I would say that's probably where I've really looked at or focused, from a standpoint of like how it's impacted how I lead.
Oh, that's wonderful, Courtney. I think that's a very interesting insight. It's not only true for the hospitality sector, but I think it's worldwide. In Singapore, you have only 12% of women in board and C suite positions, even now. And we are a
Wow.
very progressive nation
Yeah.
in terms of our policies, the way the government handles childcare, the way the government is encouraging more women to get into the workforce, by providing a lot more other policies. But still amazing to see, that we have only 12% women in board and C-suite positions.
Wow, I did not know that. That's crazy. I wouldn't have expected that out of Singapore.
Likewise. But I would also say that this is a very interesting time to be in, especially for people like you and I, right? We get to change the narrative and encourage more women to be out there and to shape the future by encouraging other kids, the community, and more women to come into the workforce, stay back into the workforce most likely after maternity, and then grow in that space. So I think it's a very interesting time that we are in.
I would agree. It's exciting. I've seen a lot of evolution, I think, just in my lifetime based on when I was born, especially with how things were in the US in the 70s and where women were and what that meant and what that looked like until now, right? And so now I look back and I see what that evolution has been. And I think it is a very exciting time, and it's a time for us to continue to elevate and push things forward. I really love being a part of that and working, like, specifically when I'm out and I am speaking to groups. I have a version of my keynote presentation that is specific to a women's audience because I just believe so strongly in women's leadership that it's a fun place to be at the moment. I really enjoy that room full of energy and excitement and motivation around what the possibilities are and how we're going to get there. And so it is, I agree with you. I think it's a great time in terms of everything that's going on. It's a great time for us.
And we always should focus, I feel, on the positives. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, definitely, but we've also
Always.
come a long way already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
All right. So, Courtney, have you had to unlearn anything to grow as a leader?
And learn, absolutely. I think we are all always evolving. I would say, especially when I was younger, my patience as a leader was probably terrible. Like, there could probably be somebody listening to this that was like, "Oh my God, she was a terrible leader. She was so impatient all the time." 100%. That person is 100% correct. I think I was someone that operated pretty quickly through a lot of my career, and I've always done a pretty good job of seeing the big picture, but also very quickly seeing the nuanced approach and nuanced ways that we needed, or things we needed to accomplish to get there. And so I didn't always offer a lot of patience for others because I learned through my career that there's more than one way to get things done, right? Like, when you're younger, you're like, no, this is going to be the easiest thing. We're just going to drive forward and make it happen. And so with time and maturity and more experience, you start to understand there's multiple ways that we can do things. There's a plethora of paths that we can take. And you have to allow, like, I think to be a really good leader, you have to allow every individual to solve those problems, to find the right path to the solution. And it's okay. Like, you can take multiple paths and still bring that team all together and get to the place that you need to get to. But I definitely didn't see that early on in my leadership career. So I think that was something I worked on, and I started to recognize more and more. And then I became a very different, at least I think I did. I became a very different leader because of it. It was more conversation. It was more voices at the table. It was more, well, how do you think we should tackle this? What do you see as the right solution? And asking those kind of leading questions versus coming to the table and saying, okay, I've totally figured it out. Here's how we're going to go forward, right? Here's everybody's tests. So, yeah, I think patience and maturity are probably on your side as you continue to grow and evolve as a leader.
Courtney, I love what you said. But what I loved even more is the way you admitted to where you thought at that time you were terrible, but you're not berating yourself about it. Okay, it's totally fine. And I learned, I grew, I matured, and there was experience. And to all the listeners out there, I would say that actually this is what truly makes you shine as a leader, where you're not ruminating over your mistakes and being so harsh to yourself, which a lot of women leaders tend to do. They will forget their wins, but will keep moping over their losses. I would say
Yeah.
that Courtney is literally like walking the talk by saying, that okay, it's okay, mistakes are made. And these are points of learning, and we learn and we grow, and then we adapt and move ahead,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Courtney. Really, that is one thing that truly stood out for me.
Oh, thank you.
All right. On that note, what would you say to a young woman who's breaking out of her mold to create impact?
Okay. So what I think it would be interesting to hear your perspective on this too, given, like we sit on opposite sides of the globe, right? I think that too often women are told that there's an expectation when they come into their work, right? That when you come into work, there are certain things that you need to leave at home. There are certain aspects, kind of back to our conversation around like men, how do men influence? It's kind of like how do men behave? And so there's this expectation that, you know, you can't be emotional or you can't be too forceful or you can't be this or you can't be that. And I think what has happened is that through the evolution of women being in the workforce in the last several decades is that we have sort of checked certain things at the door and we don't bring parts of ourselves into our work, right? That time is done. I think we have to completely reverse course on that because women just innately operate differently, right? We look at the world, our perspectives and how we handle things, they're just different. It's not bad, it's just different. And so one of the things that I really talk about is that we have to, as individuals, bring our passion into our work with us. If we aren't identifying our passion and bringing it into our work, then we've already set ourselves backwards, right? We already are not fully engaged in what it is that we're doing. And then that is going to hold us back from getting to wherever it is that we want to go. And so I got into events and I loved events and I was having a great time and, all these things were happening. And it really wasn't until 2014 when I actually merged things together for myself. I was ready to leave the event world because I wasn't able to focus on some of my personal passions. I'm really passionate around environmental sustainability and social impact. And I had traveled the world and been to all these places. I'm like, the world is this amazing, wonderful place that everyone should experience. Like we have to do whatever we can to conserve it and make sure that it thrives for generations to come. And then I arrived back in the US for the events industry and we just have massive amounts of waste everywhere and nobody is caring or concerned about what's going on. I couldn't make those two things fit in my mind. I thought I was going to have to walk away in order to contribute to something that meant more to me than planning an event, until I realized there was an entire movement in the industry around making events sustainable. And so then I thought, oh, now I can get into this space and I can bring my love for sustainability into the work that I really enjoy. And I can start to blend those things together. And everything changed in my career. Everything. I mean, the trajectory that I took, my motivation, how I showed up at work. I had more excitement again and I'd be enthusiastic about different topics and my perspectives on things changed. And I started to contribute to conversations differently. And then really that sense of that natural leadership, sort of what we talked about at the very beginning. I didn't necessarily set out for that, but those natural things around leadership, they start to stack up because you are just so passionate about what it is then that you're doing. And I think that's been for women especially, that's been our biggest miss. We have left that passion outside the door and we come in and we just kind of robotically go through and tell ourselves, we're like, no, I love my job. It's so amazing, right? But we're like kind of robotic because we don't have all of us in that space. And so to any young woman out there that's going into her career, don't short yourself there. Don't. Figure out what that passion is. And not everything that you're passionate about is going to fit specifically in with your work, but there's enough. We're all passionate about a variety of things. There are enough things that we can usually bring at least one of our real true passions into the work that we're doing and start to find ways to allow it to align with purpose and really push and innovate and go forward. And I think I've seen it many times. I think that allows women to innovate more, to shine more, to then lead more and really participate in the conversation. So That's my number one at the top of the list.
It's beautiful, Courtney. You're so right that women have been forced to leave things out at the door.
Yeah.
And I see one very big difference now, especially between generations, right? Like millennials and Gen X in the workforce versus Gen Z that is now beginning to enter the workforce. I feel that Gen Z is a lot more courageous in owning their voices and voicing out their opinions as opposed to us millennials and Gen X. We are still, we want to do that, but there's something that's just holding us back, and then
Yeah.
we don't do it at all. I always tell my clients that you don't want to be where the boomers were, you don't want to be where your parents were, or the older generation was. When you get to 60s and 70s, your physical abilities are slowing down, then you begin to feel resentful about everything that you're now finding excuses for just to be able to drive things for yourself. So
Yeah.
own yourself and show up.
Yeah.
And when you do that, as you rightly said, that there's more innovation and creativity. When you know what your boundaries are, but you're still so driven about your passion, you will figure out a way to get things done.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's when you root into that, suddenly it's like the creativity part of your
Yeah.
brain, right? There's this light bulb moment that goes off, and
Yeah.
you start to see new ways to approach what it is that you're doing. It's almost like you have a superpower that
Yeah.
nobody else has.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
really
totally
it's
agree.
your perspective.
Yes.
But it's amazing when you allow it to unleash. I will say this. Here's the warning label, right? Once you let it unleash, you can't put it back in the box.
Yeah.
So enjoy it. Ride that wave for as long as it's there.
I love it. Absolutely love it, Courtney. Courtney, if you could redesign leadership for the next generation, what would you keep, change, and leave behind?
Redesign leadership. I think how we look at the definition of the word, to me, I think that's probably what we need to change. I agree with you on some of the generational movement. I think our younger generation is closer to there, than where we are as Gen X and millennial. I really think the idea is that you're a leader if you're a CEO. You're a leader if you sit in the C suite. You're a leader if you're a director. And then you spend all this time in your career, and it's like this unspoken rule that if you're 3 years into your career, well, you're not allowed to be a leader. That doesn't apply to you, right? And it all has to do with this org chart companies and how we've determined what a leader is. When you really look up the definition of leadership, it means the ability to bring a vision to fruition. That's it. It's literally that simple. I think if we can kind of throw out that idea of like, well, my business card says that my title is this, and so that means I have to live in this space, right? If we kind of throw that away and we really lean into that idea that if you have the ability to bring a vision to fruition, that you are a leader. Period. End of story. Everything else you and I have talked about today is the answer to that. If you can really take what it is that you're excited about, bring it into your work, find the right solution, innovate, create, push it forward. It doesn't matter where you sit. It doesn't matter who's in your little sphere of the organization or what have you. You have the ability to carve a path for leadership for yourself based on just that, your ability to bring a vision to fruition. I think if we lean more into what it truly is, it would be a lot better for everybody.
That's beautiful. I love how simplified the definition is.
I know. I looked it up. I was like, what? That's amazing. Why didn't anybody teach us that in fifth grade?
Yeah, exactly. And I think now the younger ones are beginning to realize that and are already even in school or in college, they're beginning to work towards their vision. While us, we're still waiting for permission for someone to say, okay, now this is the label that we can give you so you can start feeling like a leader. But
Yeah,
that truly is not the case.
100%. Yeah, forget the label. Throw it out.
All right, the last question now for you. Share one philosophy or quote that shapes your legacy.
My keynote presentations are called Impact Rebel. It's intentional. It wasn't like I sat down and I was really trying to come up with something. It was like one of those times, when you're brainstorming and you're thinking about what your story is and what it is that you want to bring out and share with people how to inspire people to look within themselves and find what it is that's going to work for them. And this idea around Impact Rebel kind of came to be. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she's been a keynote speaker for a very long time, and she runs another business, and she takes people into the outdoors on these expeditions and whatnot. It's super cool. And we were having this whole conversation around what it was that I was trying to talk about. And she paused, and how did she phrase it? She said, "So a little bit of a cowboy. Yeah. Yeah. Embrace a little bit of being a rebel." And then she uses the term wild one. She goes, "Be a wild one." And I was like, yes. I'm like, oh my gosh. It like really kind of summed up where I was coming from. And so I think what I'm out there trying to say, or trying to impress upon people, is to break outside of your box. That's the idea of using the term rebel, is don't follow the perceived path. Don't think that these guardrails are up and you're not allowed to jump over them. Like, set your own path, create what it is that you're going to create. Don't follow the prescribed journey that someone has said you have to be on. Be a cowboy, be a rebel, be wild, find what it is that you want to do. I think that's ultimately what I'm hoping for everyone, because some are going to say no, like I really want to be on a more traditional path. That's amazing. That is you being who you need to be. Like, that is exactly perfect for you. But for those that are really searching, or they feel like this doesn't really fit where I know I need to go, be a little bit of a rebel, branch out, find your path. So that would be it, I think.
Love it. Absolutely. Be wild, be a rebel. Don't let paths or labels define you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Look
Exactly.
inward for your own authentic self, and
Yes.
there's nothing stopping you.
Yes. 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 Exactly.
This has been such a wonderful conversation, Courtney. Thank you so much. And what a powerful conversation. Insights were so good, so true, so raw, not at all defined in any label. Thanks for joining us on Expert Voices. If today's conversation sparked something in you, share it forward. To bring diverse, impactful voices to your next event, visit keynotewomen.com. And stay tuned for the next Expert Voices episode, where bold ideas ignite change and leadership stories unfold. Thank you.